Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Truth Will Set You Free show. I'm your host, Linda Diane Wattley, and as you can see, I am already excited about my guest today, Linda. Linda, say your last name for me.
Mancillas.
Mancillas. She is an amazing woman. I don't know how she does it. I don't know when she started, but she is one of the most caring people that I have ran into in a long time. And what's so weird about it, she's a political person. And you just wonder how a woman with 4 kids, right?
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
5 grandchildren.
True.
She loves her nation, her country. She just loves them. She loves her family. She loves dancing. I was trying to understand that dancing that you be talking about.
Cajun and Zydeco from Louisiana. You've never seen Cajun or Zydeco dance? Oh Lord, we gotta get you introduced to that.
Is it high energy?
Pretty much so. Yeah.
Like that?
Yeah. To Louisiana. Yeah.
Wow, Louisiana.
That's where Cajun and Zydeco originated. But everywhere I've been, it was in Birmingham, it was in Washington, D.C., here in Atlanta. All these places have Cajun and Zydeco dance clubs. And once a month, we hold dances and we go to them.
Wow, but I found that fascinating how well-rounded you are. I would have to say, because I'm into universal people, you are definitely a universal person to be able to have so much love for the things that you know in reality, especially about our country.
Exactly.
You are a professor. You are at the, what's the name of that school that you teach at?
Georgia Gwinnett College. It's about 25 miles outside of Atlanta.
Did you hear that accent, ladies and gentlemen?
Yeah, I was raised in Georgia. I was raised in Augusta, Georgia, the home of James Brown. I love James Brown too, rock and roll.
And I can tell you love him.
I do. He taught me all I want to know about music.
And I know you're residing in Georgia, right?
I am, yes.
So,
but I lived in Washington for 8 years before I moved to Georgia. Whenever I got my PhD and my master's, I moved to American University in Washington, D.C. And I love Washington, D.C. There's just no place like Washington. I miss it terribly.
But you're about to receive an amazing award on the 27th. That's in Alabama.
That's in Birmingham because I lived in Birmingham for 28 years, okay? So I lived in Birmingham too, okay? That's where I went to actually got my undergraduate degree at Birmingham, University of Alabama at Birmingham, okay? And so I've been steeped in love from the beginning. I was very involved with the Civil Rights Institute in Birmingham, and I was taught so many things in Birmingham, Alabama. I mean, it was very and the University of Alabama at Birmingham has been very good to me. So I'm going to receive the award for service at the University of Alabama. Yes.
For service?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I care a lot about Birmingham, and I visit often. I have 2 children that live there, and so I often visit. Every time I go back, I always go to the University of Alabama. University of Alabama is where I met all my feminist teachers, and and they instilled me the quality and the love for universal equality, and I just really appreciate my undergraduate university, which was University of Alabama at Birmingham. Yes,
that's what I'm saying. You're an amazing woman. You so into some serious issues and different things like that. I was curious to know, when you was a little girl, what did you want to be?
What did I want to be? Well, I had a hard time in school. This is one thing that I think helped influence my career. Whenever I was in school, I had a learning disability, but at that time, nobody knew about that. Nobody knew what learning disabled children had to go through. And so I struggled in school. I really did. I had, and at that time, there were no support systems. There was no, disability services whatsoever. So I struggled through my, through my high school years. But once I got to college, I was able to get the help that I needed. needed, and I just took off because I got a lot of support, and that's all people need sometimes. It's just a little bit of support, just a little bit of support to get you through. And so I really developed a real caring and attitude about, people don't need a whole lot just to make it. They just need a little bit of support, and those particular schools that gave me support is the reason why I'm here, and I encourage that for my students too. And I'm at a school now where I actually looked for schools that had the same sort of mission that I have, and I'm working now. Georgia Gwinnett, whenever I first went there, they were working under President Obama's particular blueprint for education, and it captured my imagination, and I said, that's the school that I want to belong to.
Wow. See, I thought you was like a genius.
Again, with the right support, everybody can aspire to what they want to be, right?
Yes.
Yes.
So when you said, just in case somebody else might wonder, when you say you were struggling, in what sense were you struggling in school?
Well, I couldn't read. I had a very difficult time reading. I had a very difficult time with math. I still have a difficult time with numbers, transposing, dyslexia, transposing my numbers. And the teachers knew that I was having a hard time, yet I scored very high on IQ test. So they knew that I had the intelligence, didn't have just, I couldn't get across what I was trying to, they were trying to teach me. And so again, with the support and with the new developments in the learn disabled, I was able to, to really, to do well. It was very hard. Getting a master's and getting a PhD is not easy. So you got to have persistence.
You sure make it look easy with your resume. You never stopped once you got that little push, did you?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Get to my family's chagrin sometime. Once I get going, I can't stop. I can't stop.
Wow. So while you're teaching, do you pick up on your students that just maybe that there could be a problem with them ever? Has that ever come up?
Well, definitely, because, the school I'm at now, we have small classrooms. We don't go over 28 students in a classroom. Well, that's remarkable for a college. Most college classrooms have 100 in them. Well, I don't think children can learn, or people can learn when they have 100 students in a classroom. So we have 28 students in a classroom, don't have any more than that. We have a mentoring program where students can get mentoring help, and we have a lot of support at Georgia Gwinnett College. Our main purpose is to close the graduation gap. Okay, and that means that you give support to students, a lot of support to students.
And on top of that, she is an amazing writer.
Yeah.
She is in so many papers, documents people can go to and learn something. In fact, she is actually an author.
I am. I'm very proud of my book.
Yes, and I have to talk about this book. I have to look at the title because this title is amazing. Presidents and Mass Incarceration. Choices at the top, repercussions at the bottom.
Yes, sir. I'm very proud of my book.
Could I see that again?
This is my book. Can you see it?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Show them that picture that you have in the middle of that.
Okay, so that's the presidential seal, right? And then you have bars going down the presidential seal, okay? And so what I was doing while I was writing my book, I started with my dissertation of his PhD, and I noticed that there were so many people being incarcerated. We have 2.3 million people in jail right now, okay? And we have more than Russia. We have more than China. And I started looking, this cannot be right. This is not true justice in my view. And so along with my wonderful professors at American University, I started exploring this and researching what was actually causing it. Why were we doing this? And I came up with my dissertation was about the law and order movement, law and order, do the crime, do the time, all that rhetoric about putting people in jail. But then as I started looking at it, what really caused it? Who were the people behind all these very draconian laws, okay, the very strict laws that, marijuana, of course, is one of the big issues, the nonviolent drug offender. They make up so much of our drug population. And frankly, our tax money is being wasted on putting these people behind bars. And so I started looking at that and became very interested in what our presidents had done. And every president, from President Johnson to President Trump now, has just increased the incarceration in our prisons. However, one president did not. Our favorite Georgian, Jimmy Carter. Okay. Jimmy Carter is a wonderful human being. And while he was president, he actually lowered the incarceration rate. So he's our only president that has done that.
But I thought President Obama also contributed to the downsizing of that number too.
He sort of he tried to a little bit, and but what he did that are actually he started on the deportation and the incarceration of immigrants. Okay, undocumented immigrants that raised the population of the federal prison system. Okay, and so President Obama, I love him to death. I have to admit, but he's a human being. He did not make all the the good choices that he should have. And then President Clinton, 3 strikes and you're out. That put a lot of people in jail. Tighten up on parole, all that kind of stuff that these presidents did to get elected and to stay in office.
But I was trying to understand exactly what did Clinton do that was something that in the end he regretted it.
That was the 3 strikes and you're out. Okay.
But how was he still loved by people after knowing he contributed to such damage?
Well, we love some of our leaders and we don't like other ones, and it was hard for us to believe that Bill Clinton actually did that. And, again, he's been very apologetic. He said, I overshot the mark, is what he said. But again, he was at a time whenever he had things pulling on him, he was being accused of being soft on crime. Anytime a politician is being accused of soft on crime, it's just a mark against them, right? You cannot be labeled as soft on crime. So Bill Clinton took, unfortunately, and he says I've made a mistake. I shouldn't have done it, And so he, him and Obama both of them, I think, regretted some of the things they did while they were in office.
But do you think they had any control? Because it looked like to me they could present so many things, but for it to get through, it has to go through all those channels. Do you really think that they had the power to turn that thing around?
Well, that's what I talk about in my book, presidential leadership. Presidential leadership. We may ignore it in some ways, but look what Mr. Trump's already done. He placed Jeff Sessions into the Attorney General's position. Well, Jeff Sessions is one of the most strict, law enforcement. He wreaked havoc on Alabama whenever he, and I know because I was there. I was living there during the time, so I know Jeff Sessions real well. And these politicians that say, do the crime, do the time without any leniency, they didn't. What is the repercussions of that? And what are the repercussions of putting these people behind bars? Billions of our tax dollars is what it means, okay? Instead of concentrating on rehabilitation. For the nonviolent offender, they don't need to be in jail. They need to be out. We need to be doing things to help these people get back in society, being productive, which I have to admit, our governor, Governor Deal, he has started in office a justice reform, trying to convince the Republicans of the Georgia General Assembly to let's look at rehabilitation. Let's please stop building prisons, and let's stop putting people in prison, because it's killing us financially. It's killing, it's a draw on our economy.
And see, what I was trying to understand, because it looked like when I read your book, I can't help but wonder, what was the prisons like before slaves were set free?
Well, I didn't go back that far.
But I mean, because it looked like to me, it was pivotal to the attack to do this to a human soul. It came about when slavery was, terminated.
And this is true, even in our prison system today, the majority are African Americans and Hispanics. They're minorities in our prison, right? And so there is a racial component to this. There is definitely a racial component to who goes to jail, and it's also about being poor. It's also about being poor. If you cannot afford attorneys to defend you, you're gonna spend time in jail. And once you have that on your record, it's a killer, right? Once you have that on your record, it's hard to get a job. You lose, some of your families, you loses some of their stability. And so, another thing I like to talk about are women in prison. This is another thing. And these mothers that are in prison for these low-level nonviolent offenses. There's just got to be a better way for us to handle this social problem. Now, I am not for crime. Please do not. What I'm for is being smart on crime and being right on crime. Okay, and that means us having policies that, yes, let's reduce crime, but let's also rehabilitate these people that are caught in this system. And my book talks a little bit about the prison industrial complex. I don't know if you read that very thoroughly, but this is a business, Linda.
That's what I was getting ready to go into next.
Yes, they are making money off of how many people they have in jail per day, the census. So, they want people in jail, right? And and the prison industrial complex, they provide jobs for rural communities, these prisons that are way far out and people have, make a living. But do we really want to do that? Do we want to have our economy focused around imprisonment? I don't think so.
But so it is.
Yeah, it's a very complex issue that we're going to, there's no easy answer. Let me just first say that. Whenever I was in Washington for a year, I worked for Representative Bobby Scott. Bobby Scott's a Democrat from Virginia, 3rd District of Virginia. And Bobby Scott has been working for years to try to reduce juvenile crime and imprisonment and the general population, and he's constantly been foiled at his efforts to let's reform criminal justice. Let's do it a different way, okay? And so, and there are other people in Congress and even Republicans now, because it's costing us so much money to put these people behind bars.
Well, I also ran into an article that I read. Now, this is the sad part. It used to be a time when America set people up to be choosing to be a soldier, because now you can get an education. Now you can get an income. You can have a quote unquote label of acceptance, of power, respect. At one time they drafted, but they don't have to draft anymore because they set this system up. But the sad end of things is when I read that in these prisons, they are creating all the material that they need in the military, like your helmets.
Free labor.
Yes. And it's so much stuff that they take care of for the military.
Exactly. I mean, it is again so complex, and it just pulls on every part of our society. Okay, and most Americans don't even realize what's going on in terms of these prisons. And so I'm a real
advocate,
supporter of trying to look at these prison industrial complexes and seeing who's making money off of incarceration of our citizens. And so that's another wicked web that we have woven for ourselves here.
That reality that they are taking care of all the gear and different things that we need to keep up the military.
Yeah. Well, just think about, the war on crime, the war on drugs, the war on gangs, the war on terror. They're also, grounded in this military language and this military rhetoric, okay? But we are incarcerating our citizens. And I want to go back and say, let's look at what damage we're doing to our society in terms of all this.
And so, when I keep hearing, because I believe in the truth will set you free, any truth is something I want to know. And, like I say, universally speaking, Now, when you hear Christians saying how this world is going to be destroyed, it's like you can't help but wonder why not, because they will kill you. People will kill you just for self-gain of themselves and their cash money. And they do it as a collective. They do it as a system.
Well,
They do.
capitalism is a very strong, strong system.
That's enough reason to, humanity is like they're not progressing.
Well, but I think we do have opportunities, right? We always have hope, and we always have opportunities. And the opportunity here is to say, okay, let's step back. Let's see what our public policies have done. Let's see how we've erred in our public policy. We can go back. The thing, I always tell my students that what's the first thing that preamble says? We the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union. We are not a perfect union, okay? But there's that chance always to form that more perfect union. And we have the resources to do that if we are directed enough to do that. And so, awareness, I think, is a really good thing. Everybody that listens to your radio show should be questioning what our government is doing with their money, okay? And, this mass incarceration is something that can be corrected. It can actually be corrected if we will look at our laws and stop imprisoning these low, nonviolent offenders, okay?
You saying if we, who is we?
We the people, we are the ones that vote, okay? And we're the ones that have put these people in office that have these draconian laws, okay? Somebody asked me the other day, I said, well, I'm not an educated voter. What should I be looking for? What are the key words that I should be looking for? Well, I say, right away, you should be saying, looking at things like, put them in jail. Let's put these people in jail, and kind of vilifying people. They're evil, they're mean. Now, yes, there's evil in the world, but this is a good example, I think, in what happened in Nashville. Over the weekend with the killing at the Waffle House, where a gunman goes in there and kills 4 or 5 people. Guns, right? Are guns not a huge issue in America? Yes, they are huge. We have too many guns on our streets, right? And this guy, he had that went up in Nashville and shot. He had a mental illness, okay, and he had also been warned. The Secret Service knew about him. He had been on the White House grounds, and the Secret Service had taken his weapons away. Okay, but his parents gave it back to him. His father gave the guns back to him. So he goes in, and basically shoots up a Waffle House, and luckily there was a hero that stopped him, but this is a good example. What about the guns in America? We have got to do something about these assault weapons. And so again, it's a problem that has many layers, but it can be fixed. We can have gun control. We can stop having these AK-47s or whatever you call them on the street, but voters vote for people, okay? We're the ones that elect these people that pass these laws. And so I'm a real believer that if American citizens got more involved and were more aware, they could take the power of the vote into their hands and get rid of some of these officials that are backing these insane policies.
Yeah, one of the things I learned too, reading your book, how legislature.
Exactly, yes.
How that is constantly in motion.
Right, exactly.
Before you realize it exists.
It exists. But we have what we call federalism. So we have the state governments and we have the national government, right? And so it is a cumbersome process. Let me just say that. To govern is a cumbersome process. But you know what? The way I feel about it, we have smart people in this nation, and we have people that can solve our problems. And I think if we paid more attention to who we were electing and who we were putting in office, we might have a better chance in correcting some of these problems. And not talk about these people, not elect these people who are all mouth, right? And have these policies that are detrimental to people, to all of our people.
So what would you say to a voter who said, I didn't even vote for Trump? Electorals voted for Trump.
Yeah, the electoral college.
How do you regain value of your vote?
That is true. You know, Hillary Clinton won the election, right? The popular vote. She won the popular vote. But it's that electoral college that comes into play. Well, you know, that is an issue, and that's the same way Al Gore was elected, right? Through the electoral college. It may be time that should be changed. It may be time.
And so I'm fascinated with your hope and your faith in America.
I do have faith in America. I have wonderful students. I look at them, they are working, they are going to school, they have families, they are not out partying, they are struggling. And so I look at my students, and they are the most inspirational vehicle I have to look at, because I know they want a better life for themselves and for this nation. And they are, a lot of people complain about our youth, but I think if you dealt with them on a daily basis like I do, they're not perfect. We never have been perfect, have we? But I'm inspired by my students, and I'm inspired by the education, by our higher educational system. And so, I think there is hope, and I think, I'm going for the good fight. And I believe that exposing things like what our presidents have done, and understanding how much power our presidents do have over public policy, and how much our elected officials have, I think that's a starter in getting people, to know that they have power in their vote, that you have to register, and then you have to go out and vote, and then you have to know what the issues are. You have to have an understanding, and that's not easy. That is really not easy.
So how did you get into politics?
The way I got into politics is that I had a daughter, okay, who had a brain tumor, okay, and this was my next to my last child. And when I started to put her in school, there was not a whole lot of services for this child. And so a bunch of us mothers, about 5 or 6 of us mothers, who were in a pretty wealthy school system, the Mountain Brook school system in Birmingham, Alabama, we just kind of forged together and demanded that they give our students who were disabled a free and appropriate education. And it worked. It worked. We mobilized, and we went to the city council, and we went to the education board, and we said, we're not going to bus our children out of downtown Birmingham. You're going to provide an education for them out here. And it got done. And I saw that kind of showed me what power. And one of the women that I was actually working with said, you should go back to college. You should be able to be a teacher. And that kind of set me on and Birmingham University of Alabama was right there in Birmingham. And so I started and loved it, and been going to school ever since.
You are a professor, but it seems like, what is your active role out there in the political world?
Well, I do things. I try to go to conferences. I try to do things like I work with some of the organizations here in Gwinnett County, and try to get mostly voter education. Try to get people, because I don't want to tell people how to vote. People have the right to choose their own vote. I'm not going to tell anybody how to vote. I don't tell my students how to vote, right? You have to have critical thinking skills to make sure that you vote for the people that are in your best interest, right? And so, I use my students, I guess, and my school as a platform to teach people about politics.
And you do a fantastic job, because you be writing some papers.
Well, I'm proud of my book. It took a long time. I started this as my dissertation, but I think it has some really good information about it. It kind of traces how this has happened.
What made you decide to put it in a book? Because you did a lot of, like I said, papers.
Yeah. Well, the book was something that I had just sort of been looking forward to, and I had some real encouragement from my publisher. She actually sought me out and said, "Listen, Linda, this can be a book. I've read some of your work. You really need to give me a book." And and so Jessica Grabels at Prager, she said, "We can do this," and she worked with me, and I'm very proud of our product. Yeah,
it's amazing how you can take each president. I think, how far back did you go?
I went from Johnson to Trump. from Johnson, because President Johnson, he was the one that first really started federal law enforcement. It used to be law enforcement was pretty local. Well, his programs, he started feeding money into federal money into law enforcement, and that really, follow the money always, and that's what kind of exploded the law enforcement, the federal law enforcement. Yeah.
You did a great job. It's like you just really took your time.
I did. It took a long time to write this book.
How long did it take us? You could tell that book wasn't just thrown together.
Well, I started again my dissertation, okay, and that was at American University. And then it was kind of a funny thing. I was really struggling. I thought, what am I going to do with this, with all this information? And I was talking to the person who wrote Nixon, the Contender. Okay, I met him at a conference one day, Gilman, and Professor Gilman said, "Linda, what are you doing?" And I said, "I'm just trying to put all this together and don't really know what to do." I said, "Johnson's done this, Nixon's done this, Reagan's done this, and blah, blah, blah." He said, "Well, there you have your book. You have your book. What has presidents done to add to mass incarceration?" So it actually happened over just a conversation at the American Political Science Association in Philadelphia. Yeah, so just that little conversation, sort of like was, fell from heaven, right?
And I tell you, and while I was reading, I found it interesting how drugs played a big part in a lot of those laws being passed.
Yeah, well,
this powder, not this powder, different.
And the 1960s and 1970s were pretty scary to a lot of people, right? We had all these movements going on. We had the civil rights movement, we had the women's movement. We had a change in culture. We had the pill, the birth control pill came into being, and so there was a lot of just a change in society, and that put fear in a lot of people. Okay, and so when Nixon arrived on the scene, he wanted to kind of draw that let's get back to a more moral society, right? Let's stop let's stop all this free sex. Let's stop all this kind of stuff. So Nixon and Reagan had a lot to do with these wars on drugs and war on crime. Yeah. And again, nobody wants crime. We don't, that's not good for anybody, right? But the way we've gone about it has been really detrimental to a lot of people.
And one of the key factors, like during civil rights movement, that seemed like to me, that's when they really, captivated on deciding what we're going to do with all these people trying to have their place in the world. We got to put them somewhere.
Exactly. That kind of flows in with all this mass incarceration. Just the turmoil in society, and African American gaining more freedom. That was threatening to a lot of people. I like to teach a little bit on the Black Panthers whenever we're looking at our history, and the Black Panthers started out as helping people because the Black communities needed help. And so I show a video every class, every semester on Shirley Chisholm. I don't know if you remember Shirley Chisholm or not, but she was a representative from New York, the first African-American woman to be in the United States Congress back in 1972. She ran for president. So you should look at Shirley Chisholm. She was a wonderful woman that spoke the truth. Her campaign motto was "unbought and unbossed." So
wow.
She's one of my heroes of American history, Shirley Chisholm, because I think she was honest, which we have a hard time finding these days, and she had integrity. And so, I think that's what we're looking for in our leaders, and that's what's lacking these days. And I would like to see that come. That's when I say I have hope for America. I have hope that we have good people that are not after that almighty dollar and their self-promotion, but for the good of the people. And I think we do have people like that, not saying that everybody's perfect. People make mistakes, but that's why I have hope for our country.
Yeah, it is some good people here. I have to admit that because I'm one. I know I'm not by myself.
A lot of people don't want to run for office because that kind of has a bad taste to it. But we need good people. we need good people in our government, and we need good people behind making our laws. And so, and we do have some really great people. We have. I'm for women, and I'm always trying to get more women to run, and I back women candidates, buddy. I give them money, and to me, that's another answer for our country, is to have more women in politics and have more women as elected officials.
Well, you can see some kind of transition is taking place, but the thing is, right now they're isolating on, sexual harassment, how women been treated in the past. Well, somebody had mentioned that those laws and, that they come up with today, they didn't exist back then, but yet the crime of that past is being judged by the current new laws.
Well, you know what? Again, I teach my students history, and I show every single semester the Clarence Thomas, Anita Hill hearings. Whenever Anita Hill really exposed what sexual harassment was, okay? And so, a lot of people have never heard of this, especially my students' age, right? But they need to know that sexual harassment is a crime. It is a federal crime, and it is a state crime, okay? And I'm just really, I'm encouraged by the Me Too movement, and I'm encouraged by younger women who are not going to put up with this stuff anymore, but they're still in a very vulnerable situation, right? Men still have a lot of power.
Yeah. But it's a little shift there, but it's, you can't let it settle like it didn't shift. You got to keep pushing it to completion.
You're not going to get any.
They let you have so much, and then they say, oh, their attention will go on something else. But the reason why I had mentioned that, okay, you're talking about how laws have changed. Okay, you have people in prison where certain drugs was found on them that required certain punishment back then. Mm-hmm. So now that the laws have changed, just like the women, they're being considered for justice.
Well, marijuana is a good example. I think that putting people away for smoking marijuana is really ridiculous. It's almost like we almost need prohibition. That's what is happening. When alcohol was a crime. Now, I'm not saying that I'm not trying to say that marijuana does not lead to more drug abuse. I'm not trying to be saying anything like that. But I think the decriminalization of marijuana is necessary at this point. We just need to stop putting people in jail for smoking marijuana. Okay. Now, I'm not talking about drug dealers. I'm not talking about those people that break the crime and do murderous acts. I'm talking about these people who use marijuana. I don't want to use marijuana. It's not part of my life. But, I'm not sure that it should be a crime. And I think we should really work towards decriminalizing marijuana.
But go ahead.
I was going to say that, but with people like Jeff Sessions, who is our Attorney General, that's not going to happen. He strictly believes that these are crimes that should be punished and have a real stiff penalty with them.
But it seemed like to me, especially when it wasn't violent crimes, it seemed like to me over time, every state should have to be in a position to reevaluate cases of innocent, to me, crimes that didn't call for somebody to spend so much of their life there, and have some kind of program for them to go through and get back in society. Some of these people have children.
Right. Yeah. And, we have never really ever invested a lot in rehabilitation. I did a study abroad in the Netherlands, and at one point, I'm not sure they're doing it now, the Netherlands was really invested in rehabilitation, and their prison system was much different than ours, and that was sort of a model for a long time of how rehabilitation can work. But we have never really tried that in the United States because it takes a long time, Linda. Rehabilitation is not a quick fix. You have to help people along. You just can't say, get out there and make it on your own now. You have to really work at rehabilitation, and we've never given it that kind of commitment in America. But I wish we would. We certainly have spent enough money on the other thing, and it hasn't worked. So I think we should do prison reform, criminal justice reform. Yeah.
But like you said, it's a business. So when you have that many powerful people profiting from something like this, do you think there's going to be some laws passed eventually that will stop this madness?
I sure hope so. And we do have, again, we have some public officials that, like Mr. Scott, who are working towards that, who do, have that right on crime or smart on crime mentality. But he's in the minority. He's in the minority. Yes. Yeah. But again, the cost is so prevalent these days that is having some sort of an impact on, especially on the states. Okay, because the states can't afford it anymore. Just can't afford that huge prison bill that states are having being faced with now. Yeah. So maybe there is hope in terms of that.
Well, like I said, we are shifting in certain ways. It's not amazingly like boom, but at least we're getting some bumps in the road.
Well, our government is really made not to move quickly. The actual construction of our Constitution is that we work slowly and thoughtfully, right? Sometimes too slowly, right? Too slow.
Do you really think people should want to listen to what America has to say?
No, one of my students asked me the other day, and I want you to listen to what he said to me. He said, "Is America really the greatest country on earth anymore?" That's a question we should all be asking ourselves. Is America truly the greatest country on earth anymore? I want it to be. I'm sure like you want it to be. But, that takes work. And it takes looking at ourselves constantly. Are we doing the right thing? And so, I just sat there and stared at him. I didn't have an answer.
I was waiting for you to tell me what you said.
I thought that was a very important question that student was asking. And I'm glad that he was asking that question.
And see, that's another great concern I have. Our children. Look at the legacy that's being left to them. It's horrible.
Yeah, well, it's horrible in some ways, but then I see the hope in my profession. I see the hope in my college students, and I see how much they do care, and how they want America to be good. They want the world to be good. They're invested in that, and so whenever people start talking about how the situation is so bad, I just say, come out to Georgia Gwinnett College. Let me introduce you to some students. Let me show you.
I hear you say that because I'd be searching for hope.
Yeah, well, I think our schools. I do think that our colleges have really good people who care about the world, and that's what we're supposed to be doing as educators, right? We're supposed to be fostering that. People who care about others and care about the world. And I'm lucky to say that a lot of my students do care.
That's great to hear. That's encouraging to me because I'd be searching. That's why I asked. I figured if anybody would have an answer, it'd be you, because you are out there in the trenches and you share your knowledge and wisdom and you listen to people. But I can say I was hopeful when I saw how those students took control of about the gun violence that's been going on. Now that was very hopeful.
Yeah, that is hopeful. And again, it's not perfect. And I get discouraged sometimes, and I get mad, and I fuss. And tell my students, I want them to do better always. I have high expectations. I have high standards, which makes them mad sometimes. But I think we as an adults can really foster that caring relationship by getting to know these young people, and by getting, supporting them. Like, college, the expense on college is so high these days. I mean, it is, the tuition is
ridiculous.
Ridiculous. Okay. Luckily, the school I teach at is one of the less expensive in Georgia, and that's due to our president and to our Board of Regents. But you know, we want to give our students opportunities, right? And we want to do it in a way that they aren't strapped for lifetime with loans. And that's been a huge problem too. You know, the government's cut back on the loan. And Betsy DeVos, who is our new education, the chair of our education department, she's not a friend in terms of our students. I don't think. You know, I just have to be honest here. They're cutting back on loans, on student loans, and you know, want to raise interest rates and all kind of things. And we don't need to be doing that to our young people. It's expensive enough. College is outrageous these days.
Well, you know, that's the kicker too. Okay, you don't get no education, you don't have a decent job. Oh, we got a jailbird coming.
Right. You know, they call that the school to pipeline, the prison to pipeline. You know, and you know, it's true. We just need to get these. We need to support our young people as much as possible, and get them good education so they can be productive American citizens. You know, and our schools are key in this the traveling through life and trying to get them on the right road. Yeah.
Well, you're definitely doing your part. So, you know, what's the feedback you're getting from your book?
Well, you know, mostly it's good. Mostly I've gotten good feedback on it. Again, it hasn't been done quite in this way, you know, looking at presidents. So that's a new thing, and political science always likes new things, okay? And so, you know, so I'm hoping that more people will read it and will see and the value in looking at our elected officials and seeing what presidents have done. And so, yeah, so, you know, I'm on promotional, you know, trying to get people to read it. And, you know, I think it would make a really good textbook for the presidency, you know, and because it not only talks about the presidency, it talks about Congress and you know, and the judiciary. So it's a real political science book. let me put it that way.
Definitely very informative.
Yes, yeah, yes. And I really appreciate you having me on and, you know, spreading the good word and talking about the good works that you do. I really appreciate that.
And you was in the March with Women.
Oh yes, man. You know, I'm a child of the 1960s, and so I'm a baby boomer, and I believe in protest. I believe in taking to the streets, babe. And so when after President Trump was elected, there was that big women's march in Washington D.C., and there was no way I was going to miss that. There was no way. And so yes, I went to the women's march and had the most fantastic time ever. It was great. 1 million women showed up, you know, saying, we are not going to take this. We want a peaceful earth, and we want good elected officials. And there's fear behind Donald Trump. You know, he's a scary person, and I regret it because he could be a great president. You know, he could be. And so, like all people, they have the possibility there. But women are watching, and women are active. And women want peace and an environment where our children can be raised in, you know, in peace and growth and progress, and not going the other way. Definitely. So yeah, I'm a protester.
So you really believe that they would have really gave Clinton a chance to be president?
Well, you know,
Hillary. You think they would have let her in, being a woman?
Well, you know, all this thing that happened around Hillary Clinton, I'm going to be very partisan here. I have followed Hillary Clinton for years. I think she's one of the greatest people on earth. I hate what happened to her. I think it was lies. I think it was distortion. And I think, you know, the word misogyny comes up, you know, the hatred of women, the distrust of women. People just made up things about her. You know, she was the most qualified. She would have been a wonderful president. And, you know, they were just lies about her. And, you know, not only Russia, but Americans lie about her. And, you know, and men are scared to death of powerful women. Men are scared to death of powerful women. And Hillary is an example of that. But, you know, I think she would have been a wonderful president. I've studied her. I've read about her. I've met her. And I think she's a wonderful human being.
So they said that was two evils that we had to choose from.
Well, you know, and we need to move forward, though. We need to watch President Trump. We need to make him hold him accountable for his actions. And, yeah, because, you know, our government is set up even for bad presidents. You know, and we the people, I keep on saying, we the people have to stand up to any kind of tyranny. And we have the mechanisms to do that.
Wow, Linda, you are on the Truth Will Set You Free show. Give us a truth to remember you by.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I've enjoyed this. This has been delightful.
I want to hear a truth that we can remember you by.
A truth that you can remember me on. Well, I like yours. The truth will set you free. That's just beautiful. The truth is that we need to be educated, aware citizens who vote. That's what my truth is. Okay.
Wow. You are in it to win it for this nation.
Oh, love that. I am.
And then you're family oriented at the same time. To be able to work those two in your heart is amazing.
Yes, and you know, I love my children. You know,
Yeah.
you know, and I'm well. Let me just say it. My grandchildren are the apple of my eye. my older children, my children say, "You sure didn't treat us that way because anything go wrong." I'm just telling you, that the cutest thing ever. And so I just love my grandchildren to death, and I want this world to be a good place for them.
That's what I like. You're a very well-rounded woman.
Thank you very much.
And you have so much to give, and you're giving it. And it's such a pleasure to have you on our show today.
Thank you. And thank you so much for having me. I've enjoyed this.
You have to come back, you know, because I know you're not through writing.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to go to London this summer, and I'm going to do some research on Alice Paul and Lucy Burns, who were suffragettes who fought for the women's right to vote, and they were trained under the British suffragettes. Okay, so I'm going to go to London this summer and try to do some research on Alice Paul and Lucy Burns.
Okay. Like I said, you're welcome back anytime.
When I get back from London, we can have me on again. Okay.
Take care.
Thank you, Linda. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.